Music from this episode is available on the Twin Peaks Evangelion Spotify playlist. Check the show notes for a link.
Harry, I have no idea where this will lead us, but I have a definite feeling it will be a place both wonderful and strange.
Hello, and welcome along to Twin Peaks Evangelion. This is a podcast where two internet pals get together and talk about complex media with having only seen the later parts of the narrative. I'm Craig, and I am a Twin Peaks fan watching the Evangelion rebuild films with no prior knowledge of the original anime. And I'm joined by Vincent, who lives in the States, is a huge anime nerd, and is watching Twin Peaks The Return, having known nothing about Twin Peaks The original series.
Correct.
How are you doing, Vinny?
I am doing extremely well, and I'm very ready to talk about this latest part of Twin Peaks, because my god.
Absolutely. No, I've been looking forward to this for a while. If you missed our first episode, this is a weird time to come in to our discussion.
You see, one of two episodes. Let's start with two.
Yeah, absolutely. Just for a bit of context, though, Vinny has watched the parts 5, 6, 7, and 8 of Twin Peaks The Return. And if you know anything about Twin Peaks The Return, you'll know that these series of episodes ends in an interesting way. We'll put it that way. We'll get to it. Yeah, I watched Evangelion 2.0. You can close parentheses advanced, which was really cool. I really enjoyed this one, Vinny. How did you feel about this lot of episodes of Twin Peaks?
Briefly, it was like, okay, more interesting things, more interesting developments. Then part 8 happened. I'm like, okay, I am now obsessed. I thought I was obsessed before, but no, this is where the obsession will sink deep into my soul.
Awesome. Oh, that's so cool. That makes me very, very happy.
What would you do if I just said right now, oh, I hate it and I have no interest in doing this again?
Honestly, I would not be surprised. But part 8 especially was super divisive, and the commentary, I guess at the time that it came out, was people were either like, holy shit, this is phenomenal, or fuck this, I'm out. Like, I can't do this. It was either one or the other. There was no kind of like, that was alright.
Fascinating.
Let's get to it. Let's move into our first section, which is recaps.
Let's start from the beginning.
So, Vinny, you watched 4 episodes of Twin Peaks. You watched Part 5, Case Files, Part 6, Don't Die, Part 7, There's a Body Alright, and the infamous Part 8, Got a Light. Can you spend a little bit of time just sort of recapping what happened in those 4 episodes?
I sure will.
Please.
Beginning of part 5, we're back in Las Vegas. We see these people of hitmen still looking for Dougie. They're in correspondence with this woman named Lorraine. She's just going, find them, then hangs up. Then she pulls out a phone and texts this faraway machine. This looks like almost like a modem or something in it, like a dish, and it's beeping, and she texts it, Argent 2.
I just want to jump in here and just talk about Lorraine for a second, because she does have a really interesting theme song that plays during this. There's this really cool sort of like hip-hop type beat, which I really dig. I really like it as a song. But an interesting little tidbit about this, that track, if you search the word, I don't know if this is still true, but someone told me at the time that this episode aired, if you search the words old school hip-hop on Google, this song is the first thing that comes up. So my assumption is that David Lynch thought to himself, I want an old school hip hop beat under this scene. And he either himself or one of his interns Googled old school hip hop beat, played it for him, and he went, yes, that's it. That's the one. And they just licensed it and went with it. Yeah. Anyways, sorry, I interrupted.
It's okay. It's worth it. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Very cool track. I'll play a little bit of it now.
Back to our regularly scheduled programming, we then go back to the John Doe body. The coroner starts making jokes like, I think he died from losing his head. And then a very interesting thing happens. Inside the body of this John Doe is a ring belonging to Dougie. What the fuck was Dougie up to before he got taken over by Agent Cooper?
Very interesting.
We then cut to Mr. C in his cell, and there's this flashback, which I assume is either from the original show or the movie, of Agent Cooper looking man with like faded out eyes, maniacally laughing next to this other man with long hair. And then it shows another young Agent Cooper looking guy bashing his head against a mirror, looking and seeing the long-haired man in his reflection. Again, I don't know what's going on, and I see something from the previous events that I haven't seen yet, and I'm like, I'm deducing that long-haired man is inside this doppelganger of Agent Cooper. Based on that, I was assuming like, okay, this long-haired man was also in the Red Room, and he escaped out of the Red Room with a body looking like Agent Cooper. Meanwhile, Agent Cooper was stuck there until this return, is what I am surmising from this entire thing. And
interesting theory.
He says,
"You're still with me. That's good."
As if there's any doubt that man was still inside him. Then we cut to what I thought was a useless scene at first, was this man Stevie looking for a job in an office building and basically being laughed out of the room for being, ungroomed, a horrible written resume, and being laughed at. Then, cut back to Twin Peaks Sheriff Station, where we see Sheriff Truman arguing with his wife about broken pipes. And I'm like, I like just this domestic stuff in the middle of all this nonsense.
His wife's performance in this is great. I think she's a real highlight of the show. Yeah.
Okay, then we cut back to Janie E discussing the money situation that Dougie was in with the now Agent Cooper, saying how she has hidden all 425,000 money in their secret place, and then he's just his usual nodding like a little baby infant, which I love. Like, at this point, I don't care if I see a normal Agent Cooper. This man is precious and deserves the whole world. We cut to Janie driving Cooper to Dougie's work, which is Lucky 7 Insurance. So now I finally learned that Dougie was an insurance agent and was then just sleeping with prostitutes in already claimed houses. Like, that's an abuse of power as I've ever heard one. And then he's just, walking along and is attracted by coffee. And this intern man just bringing coffee to the office, and just Cooper likes that, and he describes it as a damn good Joe. I'm like, that's another thing through like the zeitgeist of pulp culture that I know, like there's coffee, Cooper likes his coffee.
Yeah, that's not a spoiler. That's it's a pretty main plot point.
Now, if you were to tell me that the evolution of the arm came from a coffee cup, then yes, but I could believe that.
I'm not going to confirm or deny that. We'll get there. I think just to note too that the damn good line was one of original Recipe Cooper's big sort of lines. Damn good coffee.
Then other things I start triggering him when he's at a meeting at the place. He hears the word agent and case files. You can tell the Cooper's in there. He's trying to get out. Or then we cut back to the silver mining casino where he got all those jackpots, and Jim Belushi shows up.
Surprise breakout star of this thing, Jim Belushi, who exceeded all expectations of his acting credentials in this role, I thought.
Seriously, I took him serious. I saw him oh god, Jim Belushi. But he was playing a tough guy who was manhandling the manager, and he is told he is fired, and Jim gets in his face and goes, "Leave town. Don't come back." That was very convincing, Jim. Good for you. You put your work in.
Yeah, man. It was a great performance.
Amanda Seyfried also shows up. You can't do this. He can't keep getting away with it.
Oh, man. Yeah. No, you get a... If that's going to be a bugbear for you, I'm just going to give you some advance warning here. There's more. There's more coming up.
It's not a bug, but let me digest things for once. But so we see this Amanda Seyfried at a diner asking for money from appears to be a friend / co-worker, because her boyfriend is looking for a job and is currently in between jobs, and it is then revealed that she is dating the little no good dirtbag Stevie. She's dating Stevie in this very nice little car, and it's very obvious that he is just a schlub and she's just an honest woman trying to work, but she's somehow attracted to this deadbeat. Damn it, Amanda Seyfried. Why you gotta... I'm right here. Call me. Please.
Amanda, if you're listening.
Amanda, if you're listening, and I know you are, because we're the #1 podcast that covers Twin Peaks and Evangelion, so why wouldn't you listen?
It's true. We got upwards of 5 listens on our last episode, so we're right here, Amanda.
Well, I'm right here. I'm at least in the country you're in. See?
That's
Greg,
true, and you're at least not married either, so
Yeah.
there's that.
Yeah, Greg's married. You don't want that. He's got kids too. Who wants that?
I got enough drama in my life. Anyways, what happens next?
Then it's Amanda and him doing coke, and then there's this interesting shot that's just a close-up of her face. I know this woman's beautiful, but my God, it's just her, like, being driven in the passenger seat, just enjoying life. I'm like, God, maybe drugs are cool. Just do drugs and then go in a car at fast, and it looks enjoyable. But don't do it, kids. It's not worth it. Go back to Hawk, looking through case files, and meanwhile seeing this doc person who is Alex Jones, basically.
Yep. Very good.
When I heard his name was Doc, I'm like, oh, is he just like a rogue doc? And he starts talking about conspiracy theories, frogs gay, and stuff like that, and how he's selling his golden shovels that we saw him paint earlier for, I got it, $29.99 plus shipping and handling.
I think now would be a good time to just have a quick word from our sponsors. This episode graciously supported by Dr. Amp's Golden Shovels.
Dig yourself out of the shit.
Only $29.95. Now back to our regularly scheduled program.
Thanks, Doc. So I see a bunch of people listening to his podcast, a hunter man and a woman with an eye patch. I'm like, yes, more interesting side characters. I miss one with a log, but I'll take one with an eye patch. Then we go to the Pentagon of all places. Like, this just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And Ernie motherfucking Hudson is a colonel at the Pentagon. Craig, you have a Ghostbuster who's a colonel in the Pentagon. This fiction is amazing. There's a hit about fingerprints being run that's apparently from the John Doe in the South Dakota case. And then, guess what? We cut away from that to the Bang Bang Bar. To an asshole man smoking inside a non-smoking place. He bribes off a security guard to let him keep smoking. And then he threatens a young lady with violence.
Yeah, this was a very uncomfortable scene. He's not a nice character at all.
Let's move on. Next thing we have is Mr. C inside the prison being interrogated and asking for his phone call. And I love how it's shot where it's like, you'll get your phone call, places the phone on the table, next room, so many cameras and audio set up, like, we're getting everything. And then him knowing that, he goes, now that everyone's here, I'll make my phone call.
Yeah, that was very good.
It's so good. And then he does a bunch of number code sequence on the phone, and then every piece of machinery in that place goes haywire. And all we get is him talking to someone and saying, the cow jumped over the moon. And he hangs up. Now, this just makes as much sense as anything else, so I'm like, yeah, this pans out that would be a code word in this world.
At this point in the story, I'm just going to accept this. Yeah.
Then we cut to Buenos Aires, Argentina. This is globetrotting adventure.
Going international, baby.
Baby. That same device that Lorraine was messaging earlier is beeping again. Then it turns into a pebble.
Clearly, yep.
So not only can people turn into gold balls, but machines that receive messages turn into pebbles. As this goes on, Craig, I'm like, I am so fascinated by this world. Like, I'm convinced there is no God in this world, because who plans out this stuff? There is no God on that earth whatsoever. And then, one of the most craziest things happened to me. The credits roll, but not at the Bang Bang Bar. It was just Agent Cooper looking at a statue, loitering.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that really pulled the rug out from under me the first time I saw it as well. I'm like, hey, what?
Like, I know I've seen crazy stuff, but this is unforgivable.
It's especially jarring given that we were just at the Bang Bang Bar when we had that whole scene with douchebag smoker guy.
And then also, this was the first time I noticed in the credits that David Lynch was like the sound supervisor. I'm like, oh.
Absolutely. David Lynch, famously interested in sound. He does a lot of the sound mixing and stuff for all of his productions and has always been very interested in sound. Can't remember where I saw it, but there is a quote from him saying that he doesn't always consider himself a director, but he always considers himself a sound man. Another little aside, I don't know if you've been watching this on with subtitles on at all.
I have, yeah.
The subtitles and the closed captioning on this is hilarious because it'll be like eerie tone or like ominous whooshing sound, this kind of thing. It's great.
And then, we go to the next episode. We're back at the statue with Cooper. He's just been there. He's just there staring at a statue. Gets driven home. Janie's mad. And then she's like, did you even call them? And he's like, So
I don't know why she trusts him to do anything at this point.
Right? Like, this woman... Like, you have two small boys in your house now. One who has an excuse because he is a small boy, and the other one because he is not like the man you married.
Or is it?
That's what being trapped in a loveless marriage is like, Craig.
I wouldn't know, Vinny. I wouldn't know.
Great answer. He passed the test, ladies and gentlemen. After that back and forth, she's like, I'll handle it, and just go say goodnight to Sonny Jim. And there was this very sweet little back and forth between him and Sonny Jim playing with the clapper of the light he has. Just clap. Clap. Like that was such like a beautiful moment and tenderness inside this like mystery thing. Like that was another thing that surprised me. Like this is legit like wholesome. Like David Lynch, you got me in the feels right now. We also see at a car wash that Jade was at that there was the Twin Peaks key was inside the car, and then she just puts it in a mailbox to be mailed away to the hotel, which is like, that's not how it works. You can't just put a key in the mailbox and hope it gets to its destination.
I think that did used to be a thing. I don't know if it is so much anymore, but you could just pop the key in. It was for travellers who walked off, with leaving the key in their pocket or whatever. They could just drop it in a post box and it would get back to them. I could be wrong on that, but
yeah.
I think that was a genuine thing.
You learn something new every day. And then we get to see Janie making accommodations with the people Dougie owes money to. She tells them, look, be at this park 12:30. You will not be seeing him.
Noon 30.
Oh yeah, noon 30.
That cracked me up.
Just get some help, Janie. And then we see the red room with the man with the missing arm while Cooper is looking at the case files. And the man with the missing arm is telling him to wake up, don't die. Then he fades away into the ether again. Everything with this red room, whenever it pops up, is like, how does this work? Why is he still attached there? Is what is going on? But I can't help but love it. I love it. The weird sounds. It's fascinating. Like, I never want to know what the red room truly is. I just want it to be this thing that hops in and just interrupts the narrative for a little insight.
I think you mentioned last time the weird reverberations on people's voices and stuff in that space. Did we talk about how that was achieved? No. So when they were filming these scenes, what they would do is they would get the actors to say their lines. They would then reverse the audio of that so that and then sort of like play it out and play it a few times. And they would get the actors to phonetically sound out what the reversed audio is, what the reverse of those lines are. And then they would film that and then play it backwards so that it's, so you get these weird sort of like, don't die kind of sounds, and that's how it's achieved, which is really cool.
God, I would love to just see David Lynch in that moment of Eureka, how to do that. Like, even without the subtitle, I think I could probably get some of the words, but like just what it does to your senses is like,
so good.
So after that small chat with the one-armed man, it's just Cooper looking at the files and just making steps and ladders all over every single page because he's basically like connecting the dots between two bright spaces. His boss told him to review case files and he's just ladders and steps. This can't go well for him, can it? Let's find out. Meanwhile, we get Agent Albert in a car talking to Cole and how he's in like a rainy place and he needs to keep working. And Albert says,
Fuck Gene Kelly, you motherfucker!
That was great. That absolutely cracked me up.
and we see this new place, Max Van's bar. And who's sitting at the bar but Laura Dern? Ah! Everyone's in this thing, and I love it. And she is this Diane person. But before we get any development, we jump to a lumber yard where asshole guy, smoking guy, is talking to other guys about just transporting stuff and how asshole guy doesn't want to be known as a kid. And he's like, don't call me kid. And then the other guy just goes, okay, kid, remember this. And then he does this cool magic trick. This tough guy does a cool magic trick on Kid where he flips a dime and then a dime appears in Kid's mouth and then the dime disappears out of Kid's hand after he pulls it from his mouth and it drops again in the guy's hand. I'm sorry, what? What? Like, that's legit magic. That's not a trick. Chris Angel can't do that. I would be on my private island surrounded by supermodels because I'd be rich off that power of mine, okay? Of course, David Lynch comes up with the most mundane superpower for anyone. Like, this guy, Nick Fury's not going to call this guy to come join the Avengers. This is absurd. Then we go back to the diner where there's this one woman, Miriam, who can't stop talking about how much she loves pie. As someone who has worked in customer service, you always get those one people who just can't stop talking. They just can't. Mm-hmm. Like, I have to politely nod yes. Oh, yeah, I'm very interested in this conversation. It's so good. It's so tangible, that moment. Like, again, David Lynch getting a character actor to play this very specific character of a person you know exists in real life. And then we cut to Kid driving this pickup, and he calls the other guy, stupid magic motherfucker. Like, you're just jealous you can't do that, bro. Come on. Cut to one of the lumberers chilling in a park, smoking, and seeing this woman playing with her son. Very genuine moment between mother and son playing in the park. While also cutting back to Kid driving a truck. And I'm like, oh god, don't. And then, unfortunately, through Kid's road rage, he... I really don't like this moment, Craig. He just hits the kid and the kid dies, and the performance from the mom is heartbreaking.
Yeah, that was like, whoa, shit, I wasn't expecting them to go there.
This is the most shocking thing I've seen in this entire series, until something else later. But up until that point, it's the most shocking thing. Like, this is the wrong type of shocking where I'm like, ugh, I don't like this. And just, I already hate this kid, and you're giving me more reasons to hate him. Like, now I really hate this guy. Good, but just the performance of the mom was insane and incredible.
The thing that really struck me about this scene as well is just that it goes on for so long. And you get these
different bystanders slowly coming up. Like, it keeps happening on and on. And...
yeah, you get these protracted shots of the bystanders, and like, they're just kind of standing there and not knowing how to process it. And it's kind of, I'm guessing that's intentional, because if you saw something like that in real life, you wouldn't know what the hell to do. But yeah, it's just so uncomfortable.
And then one of the lumberers is looking on at it, and sees a light leave the boy's body and ascend into the sky. And I'm like, can this man see souls and bodies leaving? I mean, I do like knowing that the boy's in heaven. That's where he belongs, and he have eternal peace. But there's just this lumber who can see souls. Like, what is this guy in the previous seasons or in the movie? Is he used by Cooper in somehow? These are the questions I have. Don't tell me the answer. Just this world with people who can do different abilities is like, there's so much here.
Just a side note there. The man you're referring to is he was played by the late Harry Dean Stanton, a prolific character actor who worked with some of the most prominent film directors of all time. I think he was in his early 90s when he was shooting this, and he died about a week after I think the final episode of this aired, or not long afterwards. So this was, I think, either his final role or close to his final role.
Damn, what a way to go out on. And then after this heartbreaking stuff, we cut to Las Vegas again. The city of sin after you see something heartbreaking, yeah.
Yeah, that's where you go.
This man on his laptop seeing a red box, and then he checks his safe and takes out a piece of paper that has a black spot on it. Okay, this man enjoys weird art. Okay, then we cut to this man playing dice and gets a piece of paper from under his door. He opens an envelope and sees a picture of Dougie and Lorraine, and he has an ice pick kind thing, and he stabs both of them from the picture. Another hitman in the picture, I presume? We cut to Cooper in his office, bringing up the case files, going to see his boss. And then his boss is looking at all this, intentionally being like, what is this junk? Like, I asked you to do a job, and what is this nonsense? This is scribbling. And then the further he looks into it, something pops into his head, and he's like, thank you. What I found is very disturbing, and I'll have a lot of time to think about it, but thank you, Dougie. Like, it worked out for him.
Yeah.
This was the thing where I was convinced it was like, oh, he's going to get Dougie fired. But no, somehow his boss made sense of stairs and ladders on these case files that needed attending to.
Mm-hmm.
How?
And we don't even know at this point what he was supposed to be looking for, or
right. I assume
anything.
it was like maybe inconsistencies or something like that, but no, it was just stairs and ladders. And then we could do something that I found so hilarious. It was Julie at the park, the noon 30, talking to two guys who were here to collect, and her ranting on how they're not the 1%, they're the 99%, and they can't be paying people. I thought it was so funny. Not only doesn't know if they have guns or if they have intention to kill her, she's just telling them off. Like,
does she say something about they drive terrible cars or something?
They drive terrible cars.
Yeah.
So then, after it works out for her too, they just kind of take the money and walk away, and that's dealt with, presumably.
I wouldn't want to mess with that, to be honest. Like, if I was in their position, I'd be like, look, just keep the 25k, it's fine. Like,
I know, they wanted more money, and she yelled them down to...
If it'll get me out of this conversation, it's good. I'm done. I'm good.
Both these people got wins back to back, and that was good to see. We see an office building with shorter guy running with an ice pick and stabbing Lorraine.
This was brutal.
It was so something out
visceral.
of a slasher movie.
Yeah, this is so gnarly. I remember watching it just going, holy shit.
We're watching this in October. It fits, because, geez, this is one of the most brutal things I've watched.
Yeah, it's wild.
He just brutally murders her, then he goes off to kill a witness that was just seeing him brutally murder Lorraine. Like, this short man is an unstoppable monster. In this one scene, you built this man as the most indestructible killer and ruthless killer I've ever seen in fiction. And he's so small. He's so small. You would never assume. And that's what's so perfect about it. You never assume until he actually does it, and then you believe it 100%.
I think my favourite part of this whole scene is after he's killed the witness, which is off screen, he's sort of like walking away, he's covered in blood, and he sort of looks down and he notices that his pick is bent, and he sort of has this tender moment where he just sort of goes, oh no.
No.
And he's just like caressing this thing, and he's just like, oh, he's so forlorn that his murderous rampage has caused his favorite ice pick to be damaged.
We cut back to Kid pulling over after hitting the kid after kid pulling over from hitting that young kid, and he starts wiping away blood with rag in a water. Like, you're such an amateur. That will not get rid of blood, you fucking idiot. So then we cut to Hawk inside the restroom of the Twin Peaks Sheriff Station, and he notices a little gap in the stall door and starts undoing some screws, and he finds paper. And I'm like, there's things hidden in the sheriff's department pertaining to everything? This is insane. So I'm not as smart as Hawk. I would have never found that stuff. I never would have figured this out. And good man on Hawk. He's a very good man. Best. And guess who's back? Doris, because the pipe still isn't fixed. And neither is her dad's car. Then we get some insight on Doris and Truman, how their son was a soldier who had committed suicide. It's like this another real moment after this like absurdity. Like,
I wanted to talk about this because I think this is a really interesting point, and this is kind of something that I've been thinking about a little bit. That first scene when Doris, the wife, is introduced is so absurd and overblown. Then an episode or two later, you find out this piece of information that their son has killed himself. And I don't know, that just really struck me that the filmic language that they're using is that this is a funny situation. And then they come in and undercut it with this absolute tragedy, and you're just like, wow, it just recontextualizes everything really well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good. I mean, this show has surprises, but that is another surprise that is done well. Like, all the surprises are good, but that one just adding so much. So much is in that small little factoid of their son was a soldier, he killed themselves. That adds an entire backstory to these two, where for me, like, I have no prior context to anyone, but like, I feel attachment to these characters and I understand them on a very personal level that is hard sometimes with other creative works where they try to force you to care about people. Like, just so good in this. When I started this venture and started seeing like the weird Slenderman shit and like the soundstage box, like, I wouldn't expect like real human moments of like a mother losing her son in like an accident, or it's these two bickering over nonsense, even though deep down they're hurting inside because they lost a son. Like, there's so much here, and like, I think that's the hidden gem of this entire thing. Like, the realness is so real and authentic and just hits you in a way that other like real dramas on TV just don't even come close to.
I've just thought of this too. I've just sort of thought about this as well, is that in one of the earlier episodes, another scene that's played for comedy is the whole interaction with Wally Brando, which is ridiculous and overblown. But you see Sheriff Truman in that scene is kind of like trying not to roll his eyes at this kid. And he sees how much love and affection these, Lucy and Andy have for their son. And once you know that he's lost his son, it's just heartbreak. And that's another sort of recontextualization of a comedic scene, which comes later, which it only just occurred to me just now.
God, so giving me feels that Michael Cera being a caricature of Marlon Brando. God, David Lynch, you're too good for this world. And then we end at the Bang Bang Bar, back to our regularly scheduled program with a song, credits, and fade out. Then I'm like, okay, back in the status quo. I like this.
Then what happens, Vinny?
Then, I was so ready for more. I had schoolwork to do. I'm like, come on, give me more episodes. Then I finally found a point where I can watch 7 and 8 back to back, and I'm so glad that I did. Nice. So, episode 7 opens up with this phone call between a Ben and Jerry character. David Lynch loves ice cream. Like, that got a cute chuckle out of me. And these two, the hunter man, Jerry, is talking to this Ben, and Ben accuses him of being high. Then just hangs up. Just, are you high?
I think I'm high!
And then something very intriguing happens. We get to see what those letters were that Hawk found, and they were diary pages from Laura Palmer. What? This case that's been open in this town for decades, and there's evidence for it just sitting in the sheriff's station. What? It's insane. Then they start reading out these entries. This came to me in a dream last night. My name is Annie. I've been with Dale. The good Dale is in the lodge. He can't leave. Write it in your diary. And then Hux and Truman deduce that that's the good old Dale Cooper, Agent Cooper. Is he stuck somewhere? Does he need our help? Something? And then they start dissecting about this Annie. And then it's this Annie Blackburn who talked about in the diaries. And also who knows this Harold Smith, who was a friend of Laura. And I'm like, okay, a bunch of names. Is this stuff from the old series, a bunch of movies? Is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it pertain to the original series?
It does. It pertains to the original series and the movie. It's basically a big exposition dump.
Okay, so I don't feel bad about not really understanding this.
But it's picking up a few threads from the original series, which don't get expanded on too much in the new stuff.
Okay. Wait, Craig, you're telling me there's going to be questions at the end of this? I'm going to have lingering questions? What?
Oh, my sweet child.
That's not what I don't know anymore, Craig.
We'll get there.
I don't know. Craig, I don't know what the series finale is going to be of this, and I'm so excited. But let's trudge on with present.
Let's go.
So then they deduce that there's other missing pages from the diary that are still missing. And then there's this other page. It's 1:30 a.m. I'm crying so hard I can hardly breathe. Now I know it isn't Bob. I know who it is. Then they deduce that this person who hid these pages was Leland, who is Laura Palmer's father, and he was brought in for questioning for the murder of this Jacques Renault. Okay, more stuff that I don't fully understand, but apparently Laura's father was involved with a different murder altogether, or at least asked to be a witness, and then how they're deducing that Laura never met Agent Cooper, so how the heck does she know about him? They're also surmising how these words from Annie are from a dream, and the good Dale's in the lodge, but this Annie saw Cooper come out of the lodge. And then they're like, well, was the person who looked like Cooper who came out of the lodge, was it actually Cooper? And it's very suspicious that person would soon leave town, and then another person saw that Cooper one day, and that was Doc. Dun dun dun. More threads. A lot of threads
to pick up.
So many threads, and I'm here for it. I'm here for the ride. And then they get this call between Truman and this Harry, and from the call you hear that this Harry person has cancer. And who is this Harry person? Is it a brother of Truman?
Yep, slight spoilers. Sheriff Truman that we see in the return is the brother of Sheriff Truman, who was in the original series. In the original series, Cooper was working with Sheriff Truman, who is Harry Truman. Basically what happened was the actor who played Harry was retired and didn't want to sort of reprise his role, so they wrote the new role of Frank Truman, Harry's brother.
Interesting. Cool. That's a good way to get out of that situation, honestly. I like that. So then we see this part about how the truck was found from the hit and run incident with the child, and how Andy is talking to the real owner, and how the guy's like, look, can you leave? Can you believe? You gotta go. And then he's like slyly talking to him, we'll talk later. Please leave now. And then they set up a time to meet in like an hour and a half, and then we just kind of leave that and hope we find answers later. And then we cut to Truman calling Doc over Skype. Yeah. Which is so timely now to
pre-pandemic.
Skype is dead, dude. Man, those were the dark ages, because Skype sucked. It never worked for me. Did it ever work for you?
Not so much, no.
See, ladies and gentlemen, we're recording this over Zoom, and guess what? This is the worthy successor, because this actually works. Fucking, we're gonna be, I'm gonna tell like kids in like 10 years, back in my day, we had Skype, and it never worked. Y'all lucky with your Zoom Zams and your Ziggity Zaps. So he calls Doc, who is like, it's funny. He's like, Doc, do you know what Skype is? And Doc's like, yeah, I use it all the time. He's like, oh, okay. Makes it easy. Then he pulls this lever and a screen comes up. I want this desk. Good. They make desks like this? I need it.
I think David Lynch dabbles in furniture crafting, and I'm 100% convinced that that's some bullshit that he made in his workshop.
This is Bruce Wayne level shit, man. This is great. Awesome. That now Doc was called in to check up on Cooper at the Great Northern, and then Doc is very specific, like, you asked me to remember something from long ago. I don't remember a lot of things, but that night I definitely remember. Like, so then he goes into talking about how Cooper was acting strange, and he was taken into the intensive care unit, and how Doc caught him trying to sneak out of the ICU. Like, I'm assuming he found like Cooper in very bad shape and he needed to be in the ICU, but then here he comes hours later and he's trying to get out, and the look that he saw on that face, on the face that he recognized, was just a strange face, and how Cooper walked out the door not saying a word. In the ICU, they were looking over this Audrey Horn, who had done terrible business with a bank and was in a coma. Like, the way this is described, like, it was so good, such good storytelling, because I can picture, like, this cold Cooper in that moment just staring at this dog and just leaving, which is basically the same way Mr. C acts, which is who I presume is who he's talking about. And then back to the John Doe storyline, where Detective Mackley meets Lieutenant Knox, who is sent by the Pentagon about the fingerprint hit. Knox is very shocked by the person who is dead, because the coroner describes them as late 40s and died within the last few days. She calls up Ernie Hudson and says, well, the person should be in their 70s and should not have died a few days ago, so what is going on? And then, in the middle of that phone call, the man covered in black paint is down the hallway and just walking towards her, and she's not even bothered by it. She just kind of like, oh, well, okay, bye, hangs up and just walks off. Like, did she see it? Did she not see it? I was confused.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. I was like, oh, can she see this? Or is this, something only the audience can see? I don't know.
It's so weird. Like, I would have guessed, like, because when we initially saw that man painted in black a few cells over from Matthew Lillard's character after being arrested for the murder, and we see him, like, look to camera, disappear, be like, shh, and then fade away, and then he just shows up in a hallway behind this woman. Like, I am intrigued by this. Like, this is fascinating. And then, Craig, this is my favorite note in hindsight. Agent Cole sitting in front of a nuclear test picture. That's a cool picture. Wonder why he has it.
Oh boy.
We'll get to that, ladies and gentlemen, but you will laugh when I get to it. So then it's Albert briefing Cole about his interaction with Diane and how he couldn't get information out of her, and how her only response is, no fucking way. Like, cool. Yeah, that sounds like Laura Dern being a stern character.
Yeah.
Then it's Cole and Albert trying to devise a way for this Diane person to meet with Mr. C in jail, who they think is Cooper, try to get her opinion on him. We get to Albert and Cole visiting Diane in her apartment, and just David Lynch being like, take it easy, Diane, very loudly talking. I'm like, yes, this is good. And my favorite little thing in this scene is that she is denying them coffee and cigarettes as she's holding both of them in her hands. Yep. She's like, I don't have coffee or cigarettes. She's holding them in her hands. Like, it's so
it's
funny.
good.
It's so good.
Yeah, she's great in this.
Laura Dern is so great. I won't ask you, but I assume maybe it was Laura Dern or this character in the original series or movie. Like, it feels like it, like she would be the one to play something back then, but I won't ask.
Well, the short answer to that is that Laura Dern wasn't in the original series or the movie. One of Cooper's little tics, or one of Cooper's little traits, was that he carried around a little dictaphone with him everywhere he goes, and he would make these voice notes, basically, and send the tapes to somebody. And every time he made a note, he would address it as Diane. Like, he'd say, Diane, I need a pair of earplugs because the Norwegians are keeping me up all night. And for a long time, it wasn't clear whether he was sending them to somebody who was named Diane, or whether Diane was the name of the tape recorder or anything. There was just no context. I know for a lot of fans of the original show, when Albert went to the bar where he first saw Diane, he turned around and he said, hello, Diane. Everyone just went, oh, she exists! She's a real person! What? Yeah. So it was a big deal.
That's cool. I like that. So in the nitty gritty of it, they established that Cooper was her former boss and that he needs her help, and that Cole goes, now this might require a slight change of attitude on your part, Diane. Just her look back at him with disdain. So good. My attitude is none of your fucking business.
Yeah.
She actually gives him coffee, and Cole says, damn good coffee. So then he starts describing it's the federal prison, South Dakota, and they take a private plane to it because she actually agrees to do it. Then we get Tammy in there.
Mm-hmm.
She was pulling up the fingerprints of Mr. C and comparing them to the fingerprints of Cooper 25 years ago, and how they're basically inverses of each other. I'm like, what? That's a cool little detail of this doppelganger. Like, it's not a perfect copy, it's an inverse. Like, it makes sense. He is the inverse of Cooper because he's a bastard and a cold-hearted person, and he's shitty too. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's a cool little detail.
Cut to the prison, and then it's Diane by herself getting ready to talk to Mr. C. And then at one point she looks at Tammy. I'm sorry, what was your name? Tammy. Fuck you, Tammy.
Yeah, she's got no time for anyone, really.
Any of this bullshit. And then we get this interaction between Mr. C and Diane. And you see Mr. C trying to play it up like, oh, good to see you, Diane. And Diane's very cautious with her words like, oh yeah, when was the last time we saw each other? And then just Mr. C, are you upset with me? What do you think? Yes, I think you are upset with me. When was the last time we saw each other? At your house. That's right. Remember that night? I'll always remember that night. Same for me. Then she just gets confrontational. Who are you? Mr. C, I don't know what you mean. Look at me. Look at me! And she just gets a good look at him, and she knows that that's not him. And she just closes the curtain and is very shaken by this. Like, her playing shaken was great acting. Like, I believed in her. Like, she's basically saw like this like demon of a man who she thought she knew, but she knows that's not him deep down in there.
Great moment.
David Lynch, he feels like an actor's director where he knows how to get the performances out of anyone. Like, I believe that he could take like just someone fresh out of acting school and just give them the perfect assignment. Like, we joke that Michael Cera was bad acting, but no, it was perfect for what the character was. Like, there's not a bad performance in this entire thing.
No.
So then it's just Cole and Diane going back and forth like, that is not the man I knew. And Diane explains it isn't time passing or how he's changed or his look. It's something here, the heart, something that isn't there actually. And they have this very nice moment where they hug and cry, which is like very cute to see after all this, like, fuck you guys. And then just her being just so shaken. And then Cole is like, so what about that night? And she's like, talk about it later sometimes. Cheers to the FBI. Mr. C is taken back to his cell asking for a meeting with the warden and how we need to speak about a strawberry. Okay, more code words. Awesome. Then we cut to Andy going to the proposed place where he was going to meet the truck owner, and we just see a shot of like the truck owner's home with an open door, so I assume he's dead.
Plus the ominous whooshing or something.
Then we cut to Mr. C in the warden's office, how the warden is like, okay, there's no communications, there's no way of anyone hearing us. Then he pulls out a gun and aims it at Mr. C. He's like, what do you want? And then Mr. C starts talking about a dog leg, blackmailing the warden to let him out, to let himself out and Ray Monroe out, supply a car and a gun. And then they start talking about you're late, Mr. Strawberry. So I assume Mr. Strawberry is someone who has passed and the warden has information on that passing. And then cut back to Cooper. He's in his office, just hanging around, and then police show up to ask him about his car, and one of the policemen is David Koechner from SNL.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
So then that's when he and then Janie are all informed about his car being had exploded at a residence places, and how there were 3 bodies attached to it, and it was probably this gang of car stealers, and how it was Janie giving the policeman crap again, talking her way out of getting Dougie in trouble, just like because obviously he's a suspect in these murders of these people who died in the car bomb, but she's just like, well, how are we supposed to report this missing? Isn't that your guys' job? Well, someone has to contact us. Oh well, we just la-di-da. I work 2 jobs. I have to drive him around. He's at work. He needs to work. Just all these cops like, and then my favorite little detail is like, if you could fill out these paperworks, and then one of the cops like, no, we'll fill them out. You guys have a great rest of your day.
And he's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah.
And then one of the craziest things happen. Dougie and Janie are leaving the place, and then short little guy comes at them with a gun to shoot Cooper. And then Cooper becomes an amazing ninja, just takes the guy to the ground, chops his neck so he can't breathe, and is fighting over the gun, which was crazy in itself. And then it gets more crazy when Electric Tree comes out of the ground and tells Cooper, squeeze his hand off. Squeeze his hand off. And just... like, I was already amazed, like, okay, this is awesome. I see Cooper kicking ass and beating up this would-be assassin, but this tree electric brain thing is telling him to chop his hand off. And then he doesn't do that, but he hits the little assassin away, he gets away, and then the gun is left on the ground, and there's flesh attached to the gun? Which seems to look like, is that from the guy's hand? It's so... like, on top of everything being so awesome and well choreographed for like a little fight, little tussle, like, what? He got some piece of flesh off that boy?
He must have really been squeezing hard.
We cut to Ben at the hotel talking to this woman about hearing a strange noise in his office and him receiving the room to room 315, which, is that an Easter egg from the original series?
I think that was the room that Cooper stayed in when he was in town to investigate.
Ah, okay. And they say it's the room Cooper was shot.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's this woman, Laura Palmer. You want to tell me about it? And he's like, no, it's a long story. I'm like, I love how I'm still never going to get context for this original murder mystery. It's like, it almost feels like, you're here, Francis, for that? Nah, we're in this new shit. Keep up, kid, keep up.
You've had 25 years to catch up with that.
Yeah, 25 years and all these fan speculation. What do you want? We cut back to this woman, Beverly, who she goes home to her husband, who is attached to a respirator and is in a wheelchair, and how they're arguing. He's obviously suspicious why she's at her work late, and maybe she's cheating, and he's very agitated, and she's like, look, I need to provide for us. Like, more of this domestic stuff just wrapped in this little thing. Like, it's so good! And just so real. Then, my next favorite thing happens. We're at the Bang Bang bar. It's empty. And we see 3 minutes of a guy sweeping the floor.
another infamous scene.
Like it was going on for probably like a minute. I'm like, alright. How long more? And then another minute goes by. Oh my god, this is awesome, this is awesome, this is awesome. Then it gets interrupted by a guy at the bar who is answering a call, being asked about if he sent 2 blondes to a guy, another guy owes him money, and then just like nonsense over the rest of the sweeping for the last minute.
I watched The Return the first time with my buddy Luke, shout out Luke, and the scene with the sweeping came on. I think I had seen the episode first, and then I watched it with him, and he was like watching it, and then about a minute and a half into it, he said, if they don't show him finishing this, I'm going to be so mad. I can handle several minutes of sweeping, but if they don't show him finishing this job, I'm going to be so mad.
That's great. Fair point. Honestly, I agree with you. Fair point. So then after the sweeping, we get to see Mr. C and Ray Monroe get out of jail, just basically left the door open for them, and they drive off into the darkness. And then we cut to the diner, and that's where the credits roll. I just got comfortable with the credits going over the Bang Bang bar. Now you're taking it away from me again. Ugh. All right, Craig, it's time.
It's time.
Episode 8.
So, what happens in episode 8?
Okay, so Mr. C and Ray are driving away. They know that there's tracking devices in the car, and then Mr. C tells Ray to get close to the truck in front of him, and then he texts the license plate of that truck to somebody, then he throws the phone out. I assume that was him getting rid of all the trackers associated with that car. Mm-hmm. Then they go onto this dirt road, and Ray's like, I gotta take a leak. And then Cooper's like, but do you still have the information I have? Like, yeah, just 1 sec. And then he's out to take a leak, and not Cooper, Mr. C takes a glove out of the glove compartment that was provided to him by the warden and threatens Ray. And then Ray pulls out a different gun. Mr. C starts firing. It's empty. And then Ray shoots him. Just shoots him like 3 or 4 times, and he falls to the ground.
And that shocked me when it happened. I was like, oh shit, like, last thing I was expecting to happen there.
Same. I was like,
up
shit,
until about 3 seconds later.
So then it's like this little pause between like the fall of Mr. C and like and Ray just like kind of looking at him, and then a bunch of men in black paint start dancing around. They're translucent, you can see right through them. And then the lighting is like lightning being stricken on the ground as they're all dancing around Ray, touching Mr. C like they're zombies picking apart a body. The body of Mr. C is getting all bloody, and then just Ray runs to the car, drives away in this madness, and he calls this man Philip. I think he's dead. He found some kind of help. I saw something in Cooper. It's probably the key to all this.
Sorry, I don't know if you picked this up, Vinny, but it can be hard to see if you're watching it on a laptop or something like that because it's dark. But those figures, they pulled something out of Cooper, of Mr. C. Did you catch that?
No, I didn't. I just saw them picking at his body.
It can be really hard to see, but they pulled out a large kind of black orb from his stomach, and inside the orb was the face of the long-haired man.
Oh, okay. Then we cut to Roadhouse proudly presents 9 Inch Nails.
I'm going to correct you there. The 9 Inch
The
Nails.
9 Inch Nails. I'm sorry.
That's how they're introduced.
So this was the moment I'm like, do people not like this because 9 Inch Nails are in this? It's just, but au contraire, it develops. Mr. C gets up after that performance, and I put in my notes, Mr. C got up. Thanks, Trent Reznor. Your music really brought him back to life. Then
Music to raise the dead.
we see him a little bloodied up in the face, but he's up and coherent. Then cut to July 16th, 1945, White Sands, New Mexico, 5:29 a.m. Mountain Time. And we zoom in on a nuclear explosion for minutes on end. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why it's very funny that the episode prior wrote down, wonder why Cole has a picture of an explosion. Craig, it was zooming in for a while. I'm like, we're just going to get to the center of it, aren't we? I was shocked. I was in awe, but I was so giddy about it. I don't know why. This is so brilliant. Like, Christopher Nolan's movie on Oppenheimer will not compare to this at all. That will be complete garbage because this is the definitive.
You heard it here first, folks.
You've heard it here, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer movie will be garbage because David Lynch has done the definitive shot of a nuclear explosion.
The thing I like about this, and The Return has been criticised for some of its hokey special effects, like when when Dougie's head exploded and turned into a gold ball and all that kind of stuff. People were kind of like, man, what are these special effects? I wondered if they saved the special effects budget for shit like this, because this was breathtaking.
Absolutely. Like, this belongs in a planetarium, honestly. It's so beautiful. Why aren't more shows like this where they just give you pure art? Just give you art for minutes on end that you can just appreciate. It's so good. The colors, the smoke, the panning across all this was just masterful. Like, I low-key wanted the rest of the episode just inside this explosion because it was so beautiful. But alas, it gets even crazier.
What happens next?
So then, after all the explosions, go to a time-lapse of a gas station where it's this very neat trick of like time-lapse and like jumping through the editing where there's like smoke and lights going on and off, men in black paint walking around, zoom in on a pump, and you see cans are inside the convenience store and all this. And then we get we get a visual of a Slender Man, what I thought was puking, this white substance, and we see that black orb with that long-haired face man. It's interesting that the guys pulled that out of Mr. C and now it's coming out of this Slender Man looking thing. I don't know what's happening, but it's so cool. Loud music, and then purple sea and a cliffside. We zoom up on the cliffside and go into the interior with a woman in a dress listening to music. And then that tumor thing that Agent Cooper was like in the middle of the Twilight Zone intro is there as well. That tall guy from like the first episode there as well. And then he just kind of faces towards camera and basically almost looks at the audience for like a good while, which I thought was so cool. Like, It felt like it was that character looking at us. The tall guy goes up some stairs and there's this grand projector just playing videos, and then tall man is floating. The lady's going about and just floating around, and so I watched this twice because I needed to just make sense of it almost, even though that's a folly. Like I'm still entranced. Like these just two weirdos to me, just like hanging around this dark place, a theater place, and just this large projection of like a black and white video of the Earth. Then fast forwards through time to 1956, and we zoom in on this egg-like substance where this weird roach thing comes out. Craig, this thing's disgusting. Ew.
So gross.
It's so gross. This young man and woman, like teenagers, out like after a date, and like this sweet little like innocent moment of like a first date, and then we cut to this man in black walking in the middle of the road, and this older couple in a car coming by him, and he goes up to them and says, "Got a light?" And then more of them start surrounding the car, and the man and woman freak out and drive away. What? Then we finish up on the young couple after their first date, and then we see her head off to her bedroom. Then we cut to a radio station where another man painted black goes up to the receptionist, got a light, then grabs her head and proceeds to crush her skull into nothingness.
Very visceral.
It's so visceral. Like, he goes into the actual radio station proper next to the DJ, where he holds his head and then slowly is crushing his head as well, as he's saying, "This is the water and this is the well. Drink full and descend. The horse, the white of its eyes, dark within." And he repeats that a few times as he's slowly squeezing the DJ's head into nothingness. And then people around the town are hearing this message and they're collapsing. Cut to the young woman listening on the radio, and she just falls in her bed. And then the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my entire life happens. Bug thing slowly crawls inside her mouth. I was disgusted. It was horrible. Like, its little like mammal-like legs kicking into the mouth and just.
I think the worst part of this is that she like kind of swallows it, and then the credits roll at their like regular speed, which is not fast. And then sort of like right at the very, very, very end, she kind of does this little kind of thing, and I was just like,
and then it ends. It just ends with the man painted in black going into the darkness, and horse winning is in the distance, as the subtitle told me. Right. So, Craig, that was episode 8, and I love this show. This has me more addicted to the show than I was before. Like, I understand why maybe someone might give up, but no. This is amazing. This is nothing I've ever seen before, and I'm loving every second of it. So tell me about the night this came out. How did the internet explode?
It's interesting. So before this episode came out, I think it was the director of photography or someone that was heavily involved in the production tweeted something along the lines of, "Hold on to your hats for this next episode because it is a doozy." Can't remember what his wording was, but it was something along those lines. And so there was a lot of anticipation about this episode. I think it was released the week before a long weekend, like Memorial Day weekend or something like that. So basically the plan was that the following Sunday there wasn't going to be an episode. They were going to take a little break and then resume from the Sunday after that. And they'd scheduled it in such a way that Part 8 was kind of the last thing that you'd see for Twin Peaks for a couple of weeks.
It's like a mid-season finale.
Kind of, yeah. People just lost their shit. Thousands of like recap videos on YouTube and like all the stupid podcasts that I would listen to that would recap each episode. Everyone was just going nuts.
Fucking idiots trying to recap this. Idiots.
I know, crazy. Yeah, it was a huge deal. It was a huge deal. And everyone was kind of wondering how the hell is this how can that be followed up, basically. Which I guess you'll soon find out once you start on the next series of episodes. Well, we've talked for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe we should we move on? Shall we move on to Evangelion?
セカンドインパクトの続き、サードインパクトが始まる。世界が終わるのよ。
So, there's an angel, right? And it's attacking this underground place, which I think is either called Seal or Sealay or maybe it's called Acheron. I wasn't quite clear on that. There's a girl pilot with glasses, and she's piloting an Ava called Provisional Unit 5. There's this cocky dude called Rio, who isn't all that surprised that there's an angel breaching this space. Unit 5 is battling this angel that kind of looks like a metal snake or something. Attacks it and attacks it and attacks it, and kind of like is kind of crumbling around. You know, the Ava's basically crumbling around this pilot, and she manages to kill the angel by basically self-destructing the Ava and ejecting. Yeah, so she kind of ejects and escapes somewhere. Rio, the cocky dude, kind of wonders aloud why they use kids for this mission, which I got to admit is something that I'm wondering as well. And then in a separate scene, the pilot says something about using the adults or something like that. I don't know what's going on there, but
right, both sides are saying, "I can't believe the other side is letting me use them."
Yeah, pretty much. So something's happening there. I'm sure it's been explained previously, or maybe, or not. Meanwhile, Shinji is visiting his mother's grave with his father Gendo. They have a really awkward heart-to-heart moment, and Gendo kind of explains that his mother is gone and there's kind of basically nothing left and that the grave's essentially empty. And then he has to fly off in this cool helicopter spaceship thing. Masato drives Shinji home. During the trip, there's an attack by another angel. I think someone referred to it as a seventh angel. It's kind of got these long, spindly leg things and a head that looks like one of those drinking bird toys that dip into the bottle of water. Yeah, the thing that Homer uses to replace him when he was fat. Ava Unit 2 is launched and kind of flies through the air and shoots at the angel with this high-tech bow and arrow thing. The Ava kind of power kicks through the angel's force field and snaps off its limbs in this really cool scene where it just kind of goes snap, 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 and then destroys its core. The Ava lands and the pilot emerges. She's this girl called Asuka, is it?
Asuka.
Yeah.
It's spelled Asuka, but it's pronounced Asuka.
Yeah, see, I was writing it down in my notes as Oscar, like Oscar the Grouch, and I was like, doesn't sound right.
She is a grouch, you're not wrong.
She is. She's got this really annoying voice. I think she's from Europe. I think she's supposed to be from Europe. I think. Yeah,
she's part of the Europe Unnerved branch.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. She's essentially Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka. Like, she's...
You're right! Oh my god! You're right!
She's annoying and entitled and kind of wants everything and, you know, is just horrible, basically. But she's also a captain, which is apparently impressive for someone her age, and someone refers to her as the second child, I think.
Yeah, Masato introduces her to Rei and Shinji as the second child.
Yes, okay, so I'm guessing that's got some kind of significance. Meanwhile, Rio is talking to someone about some device that he's got, which, from what I could tell, is some kind of electronic soul. I don't know. It's referred to as the lost key of Nebuchadnezzar, so there's more biblical shit there.
Yep.
Rio goes to Nerve, where I assume he used to work. He gets very, very sleazy with this blonde scientist.
Ritsuko, yeah.
Yeah, Ritsuko. And Masato gets either really angry and or jealous. Rio is basically a sex pest. I'm gonna say it.
He will hit on anything that has a pulse.
Yep, as evidenced later in the film. Shinji and Oscar have to live together at Masato's place for some reason, which I wasn't quite clear on. And she's unreasonably mad at Shinji for having the gall to keep things in his bedroom. She also freaks the fuck out at Pen while she's in the shower.
Yep.
And then kicks the shit out of Shinji for looking at her while she was naked.
She calls him a creepy pervert. How dare you spy on me? You're the one who rushed out of the shower to complain about this beautiful penguin. You crazy woman.
Masato gets hammered and basically passes out with Pen's head under his shirt.
It's so cute.
I'm just going to break for this section 2 to have another word from our sponsors. This episode is also sponsored by Ebisu Beer. If you really want to get hammered with your geriatric penguin, accept no substitute. Meanwhile, back on the fucking moon, Gendo and some guy who, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think he's from Sele. They fly over a moon base, they look at this giant angel thing there, and they're surprised to see a person sitting on his finger. they spot the naked guy from the end of the first film who says, "Hello, father." So I'm guessing there's some family connection there with picking Gendo by association Shinji. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Ryo organizes a field trip to this underground facility where they replicate what the ocean used to be like. Shinji, Asuka, Rei, and a couple of Shinji's friends and Pen tag along. There's a very funny exchange where the weird-looking friend of Shinji's says some misogynist shit about how men shouldn't be in the kitchen,
right?
basically. And Asuka chews him out for it, which is very funny. At some point, there's a really, really cool, and I loved this, there's this really cool flashback scene, which was like super stylized, where Masato's remembering the second impact. And yeah, that was beautiful to look at. We also learn that her father saved her life during the second impact. So I'm guessing that's going to come back at some point.
I mean, it's also justification for her hating the angels and why she's there. Why she's in charge of every single battle and recruiting these kids, which is why Asuka's living with Shinji, because she needs them to be teammates, and she knows Asuka's hard-hitting, so hey, force them to live together, and maybe they'll work better at fighting angels.
Perfect. Solid plan. Yeah, meanwhile, back at Nerve, Masato, again, assumes control when there's another angel attack. This angel kind of looks like a psychedelic beach ball. So the city's evacuated, and Masato comes up with this plan to use 3 Avas to, describes it as catch the angel. She's told that there's only a 1% chance of success. And I think, does she ever fight with the blonde scientist about this?
Ritsuko goes, as the scientific officer, I do not approve this plan that'll basically dismantle our Avas in the end. And then that's when Masato pulls her rank and goes, I am the commanding officer, and this is our plan.
Right. Got it. So Rei pilots Unit 0, Shinji pilots Unit 1, and Asuka pilots Unit 2, and they basically fight back against this angel. The angel crushes Shinji's hand after he kind of tries to Naruto run at it, and Asuka and Rei rush it and destroy the angel's core. The streets fill with blood, like that scene in The Shining.
But also, one thing I caught in this, like I've seen this movie multiple times, but first thing I ever caught was Shinji was very confident in this fight because Asuka sees that she won't be able to get to the epicenter of a falling in time, and Shinji goes, don't worry, I got this. Like, that's the most confident this boy has been this entire thing. He's saying, I got this for us. Like, what? Character development?
That, actually, I was toying with whether to bring this up or not, and let me ask you this, Vinny. Is Shinji hot? In the world of the film, is he supposed to be coded as, like, I don't know, desirable or competent, or someone that these characters kind of want to be around and want to lay their lives down for?
I would say he's supposed to be conceived as innocent.
Okay.
As in, he is just this mostly untainted soul that just kind of wants to make everyone happy. And he will try and make you happy, but he will also voice his concerns when he's very uncomfortable. So I don't think it's necessarily that he's hot, but his attractive of his innocentness brings in all these messed up and damaged people in his life. Okay.
Because that's what I was not clear on. And he just comes across as a fucking dweeb, to be honest. He just looks like a nerd.
Oh, he is, yeah.
Anyway, back to this. So Gendo congratulates Shinji in the most half-hearted way possible. Shinji's just clamoring for and holding on to any kind of kind words from his father.
Are you winning, son?
Yeah, pretty much. Asuka, meanwhile, feels bad that she couldn't defeat the angel alone, and there's this awkward scene where she kind of climbs into bed with Shinji because she can't sleep. Next day, Rei is absent from school, but apparently shares a meal with Gendo. We hear about the Vatican Treaty, and learn that each country is only allowed to have 3 Avas in it, or something like that.
Well, before she has a meal with Gendo, she's in this test tube-looking thing.
Ah, yes, that's right.
And also, at the field trip, when they're looking at the tanks of animals, Rei makes a comment, they couldn't survive outside these
That's right.
little,
she compares herself to the little fish. Yeah, that's right. And then Shinji's on the roof of some building, I think the school, and and he's hit by the girl with the glasses from the start of the film, who's parachuting in.
Boobs first, mind you, because it's anime.
And we'll get to her boobs soon. Yeah, she basically lands on him. She says some cryptic secret agent shit about, like, how she is entering Japan covertly and needs to be extracted or some crap. And basically leaves, sort of implying to Shinji that he, should forget that he saw her, kind of thing. Ryo sexually assaults Shinji as a joke, and then they go and pick watermelons.
Correct.
Very gross scene where he is propositioning Shinji, and then Shinji is like, "Oh, but I'm a guy," and Ryo's like, "Agenda doesn't matter."
One of my favorite memes of all time about Ava was that scene. Want to grab some tea with me? But I'm a boy. Then the meme goes, then Shinji got a life learned lesson about what homosexuality is. But yeah, Kaji will hit on anything that has a pulse.
As we were saying. Anyway, where are we up to? Rei prepares a surprise dinner party for Shinji for some reason I wasn't quite clear on. There's a flashback to the second impact. Seele is seeking a true Evangelion and wants to create a real god. There's a verbatim notes that I wrote and don't remember what the context was. So not sure on that one. Unit 2 is mothballed for some reason, and Asuka's pretty mad about it. There's talk of a dummy system, which I think is like an autopilot.
Yes.
So they don't have to use pilots to run these things.
Correct.
And somebody says the words human instrumentality.
Ooh.
Which I thought was cool. Following that, they run some activation tests on Unit 3 on the same day as Rei's dinner party. Something happens, which I don't quite remember, and Asuka tests an Ava, which then becomes an angel.
Yes, because to add more context to this, it was... So, Unit 2 is put on ice because of the Vatican Treaty, which says no government can own more than 3 Avas. And as all this was happening, a different nerve base exploded, and this Unit 3 was the last thing surviving. And so they needed to send it to this nerve place. And because of the treaty, we can't have more than 3 Avas, so...
so they tucked one inside. Yeah.
So then that's when they explained to Asuka, look, we'll even let you test pilot this next one to see if we can use it.
Right.
And that's why she's inside that Ava, which honestly, they should have been more suspicious of. An entire base exploded near this thing, and it's the only survivor. Yeah, you guys should be more careful with what you let in and let your pilots pilot.
Okay, no, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, Shinji's ordered to take this thing out. There's a huge fight, and I gotta say, there's this really cool Japanese lullaby music that plays, and it sounds awesome, and it fits the scene super well. I really dug that.
It's funny, I looked up what that song is, and it's a lullaby. It's like more of like a children's song about 2 friends saying goodbye at the end of the day, but they promise that they'll see each other again to play again someday.
That's cool.
That's playing
cool,
over,
man. No, that's awesome.
It's so good.
That's really cool. Yeah, Gendo overrides the control of the Ava that Shinji's piloting and switches it to the dummy system so that it can launch an attack.
Which is great because he brings up the dummy system and they go, sir, that's still experimental. And he goes, be more useful than the pilot we already have.
Yeah, exactly.
That's your son, sir. That is your only son.
Yeah, who he's stoked to be around. Yeah, so the dummy system kind of takes over and chokes the angel out. Shinji is pissed and basically tries to destroy Nerve, I think. He starts punching the pyramid thing. The girl with the glasses shows up somewhere and suits up and makes a big point about how this pilot suit fits her boobs better, and there's this very prominent close-up of her boobs bouncing around, which really wasn't necessary. The 10th angel attacks, and it's way more powerful than anyone could imagine. Unit 2 launches by itself, and then goes...
Glasses Girl commandeers it.
Yes, okay. Alright, that's how that fits in. Cool. But it goes into its bestial form, so not quite sure what's happening there. Basically, and then it kind of gets its ass kicked. Rei pilots the Unit 0 and attacks the angel, quote, so that Shinji never has to pilot again, which I don't know why she's so caught up with Shinji not piloting something, but...
Because she cares for him. Because he's the only one that gives her genuine kindness and doesn't treat her as an outsider.
Okay. And I guess that we'll see his how the lengths that he goes to care for her soon. Yeah, the angel kind of merges with and absorbs Unit 0 and Rei, which is a thing that happens. Shinji, on the back of that, decides to pilot Unit 1, and the angel kind of breaks through Nerve's defenses. Shinji fights it and very viscerally spews blood everywhere. It's very violent. The Ava gets up and apparently goes past its operational limits, while everybody onlooking says, "That's impossible!"
Yep.
It somehow transcends the limits of humanity, and then Shinji's determination to rescue Rei is so strong that the Ava he's piloting becomes a divine being. There's a really cool scene where he basically is breaking through layers of reality, I assume, to get to Rei, who's trapped inside the angel's core, naked and in the fetal position, of course. And Shinji just, like, in a fit of rage and determination, just sort of pushes right through the limits of space and time and manages to pull her out. The film kind of ends with the moon angel kind of emerging, but now it's got wings. Masato recognizes it, I'm assuming from the second impact, maybe. And it becomes apparent that this is kickstarting third impact and also the end of the world. So that's cool.
End of the world halfway through this movie series.
Yeah, pretty much. Then roll credits, but thank you, Vinny, for pointing out in advance that there is a post-credit scene. A short scene in which the naked dude that we saw on the moon, who I think is wearing pants at this point.
Yes, he's wearing a pilot suit at this point now.
Oh, cool. Okay, good. Good. I'm such a prude, I can't handle any more nudity.
Oh, Craig, tap out now.
So, yeah, anyway, the previously naked man, he descends to Earth and promises to show Shinji true happiness.
He says that after he stabs his Evangelion with a spear.
Okay, that's something I missed.
Yeah, because it's the shot where it's like it's the divine being, the Ava, then a spear comes out and makes the sky regular again, then the guy floats down. Well, Shinji, this time I'll show you true happiness. Then credits, and then next time on.
Okay, cool. Now, I didn't watch the next time on segment because I wanted to go on fresh, but okay. So, yeah, that's basically what happened in that film. Mm-hmm. Let's jump ahead.
All right, kids. Gets a little complicated here.
Our next section is resemblances. Vinny, is there anything that sort of jumped out at you from your knowledge of Evangelion and what you saw in these lot of Twin Peaks, where there's any kind of parallels, any sort of themes or shared stuff?
One thing that actually, a scene that I already talked about was the scene of a strong-willed woman being in a hallway with some unknown creature and being unbothered by it. It's in Twin Peaks with the black painted guy and Nox, and also Mari at the beginning in a giant hallway against an angel that she doesn't really take seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. That's a great one. I didn't have too much. I just said that there's kind of a focus on extra-dimensional spaces here. You know, what with Shinji breaking through and transcending the limits of space and time to rescue Rei, and also, I guess, the extra-dimensional spaces that, maybe the atomic bomb ripped in the fabric of reality, perhaps. Also, there's reckless child endangerment, which we've discussed at length, so yes. I'm not gonna dwell on that. Let's move on to our next section.
Let's think out loud.
Our next section is reflections. So this is where we kind of talk about things that we think might have happened previously in the narrative. So thinking about what I saw in Evangelion this time round, I did kind of get a better sense of what the second impact was. I can't remember if it was this film or the previous film. They noted that basically the second impact wiped out half of humanity, or half the world's population, something like that. So clearly this was like a super catastrophic event. I'm not super sure how the Avas were developed or kind of established, but I'm super interested learning about like the Vatican Treaty and that there's Avas kind of and that there's limits on how many Avas each country can have. I'm super interested in the politics of how the technology was kind of developed and shared on a global scale. I think that's fascinating to me.
Right, because that, like, in this world, like, there has to be legislation involved with all this nonsense. It can't just be like, build weapons of mass destruction. Like, no, there's actual stuff within this world's government. It's like, there has to be regulations with this giant robot manufactured by a 14-year-old. We need rules and regulations. Now put that kid in the robot.
Exactly. So I've also thought that there's, I mean, I've sort of mentioned a couple of things around sort of the biblical references in here. You know, we had the lost key of Nebuchadnezzar, and I think there's a point where people talk about like the Magi, which is a biblical thing. So guessing that kind of implies to me that the plot is kind of vaguely following some biblical narratives. Now, I'm not a theology scholar or anything like that, but that kind of leads me to believe that we're building up to some kind of book of Revelation type of apocalypse, and I'm pretty sure there's other biblical narratives that it might have come earlier. So with that in mind, I feel like the naked guy on the moon is perhaps like a Lucifer type figure, in that he might be like some kind of fallen angel. And this is kind of getting into our next section, which is where we discuss what we think is going to happen next. But I reckon that it'll become clear that Shinji is some kind of like chosen one, Jesus/Neo from the Matrix type of archetype, and that at some point he'll probably face a moment where he'll be tempted to either join the naked moon guy in his quest to transcend humanity as it crumbles, and he'll have to sort of choose between doing that or fulfilling his destiny and sort of fighting and defending humanity. So looking ahead to what I think might happen in the next film, I reckon that Shinji will, now that he kind of has transcended the natural world in a way to rescue Rei, I feel like he's going to learn how to hone and harness these skills, and that with that will come some kind of like enormous new power, and that will give him the edge to be able to defeat whatever threat is posed by these other angels or the naked guy on the moon. But that will be after a point where he is tempted to just use that power for evil, basically. Tell me about Twin Peaks. So 2 parts here. What do you think might have happened previously, and what do you think is going to happen in part 9 onwards?
I mean, with these 4 episodes, I got more of a sense of how much Cooper was like a fixture in Twin Peaks. How it's all this talk about his relationship with certain characters, him being at places, people being like, oh yeah, the good Dale Cooper, I remember him, and stuff like that. So I have this real sense of community that Cooper was to this place, and then how he vanished really kind of left a hole in it. It's almost like this open wound of not only just Laura Palmer's murder, but Cooper's disappearance. Like, nothing has ever been the same since then, and how they're still entwined in this mystery. They're still working with these old case files and wondering what the heck is going on with Cooper. So I really like that, where it really does feel like, okay, there was a working narrative before I jumped into this last part of it, which I really like. This real good world building, I should say, that David Lynch is doing with all this. In terms of what I think is going to happen in the future, I mean, after episode 8, everything's out the window, anything can happen, but in a more structured sense, there has to be some kind of confrontation between Cooper and Mr. C, because now I know Cooper can fight, and he can fight really well, and Mr. C is a cold-hearted killer. So when I want to see these two forces come at each other and fight for who gets to be the Cooper in this world. And I also want to see more developments in the Laura Palmer murder, because I want to see the ending of that, because they're still working on it, and I want to see the solution to it and see if I'm satisfied knowing that I'm in on it at this late point in the game, because I haven't seen the setup. I didn't see how Cooper, was getting initial evidence in like the first 2 scenes of the movie, but I want to see in some way Cooper solve that murder as well, almost like as a nice little send-off for him. So I think this 3rd part that I'm going to watch is going to be more developments within Laura Palmer's murder, between the sheriffs working and maybe finding another diary page. And then I think it's gonna probably be about the time maybe Cooper will either get his memory back or return to his own self, or yet somehow he will leave Las Vegas and start heading towards Twin Peaks, because I think this would be a nice moment for to start aiming him towards Twin Peaks again.
Nice one. All right, well, been a mammoth episode for us. So this has been a blast. I've really enjoyed talking through these series of episodes, and I really, really did enjoy this the second film. So I'm keen to sort of see what happens in Evangelion next, and I'm keen to just talk about the next set of episodes with you, Vinny. So the next episodes that you'll be watching are Part 9, This is the Chair, Part 10, Laura is the One, Part 11, There's Fire Where You Are Going, and Part 12, Let's Rock. I will be watching Evangelion 3.0, You Can, brackets, not, close brackets, redo. Now that's got me thinking about a few things. Alright, so yeah, excited for that one. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Vinny, again for joining me for this crazy odyssey. Yeah, if you are enjoying this, let us know. We are not on social media, but if you do want to get in touch with us, our email address is tp@gmail.com. That's all one word. And yeah, tell us what you think. Are you a fan of Twin Peaks? Are you a fan of Evangelion? Are you a fan of both? Are you a fan of neither? Do you like to step into a complicated story partway through the narrative? I don't know why you would answer yes to that, but, you might be out there and you might be listening to this. So if you are, let us know. We're going to close this episode with a couple of songs. Vinny, have you got a song that you want people to hear? Can be related to the series, or it can just be a nice song that you like.
Yes, I do. It actually hit me in the middle of watching the nuclear explosion, because as it was slowly creeping in, I'm like, man, this feels like the beginning of a Fallout game. And then I remember one of my most favorite openings or trailers, I should say, for any game was Fallout 3, just zooming over this nuclear wasteland with the song, I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire by the Ink Spots. I think that song is beautiful, and it goes well with nuclear imagery.
I'm not actually familiar with that song, so that will be a treat for me.
Ironically, David Lynch set his fan base on fire with this episode.
Exactly. And there was an ink spot on the thing that the guy pulled out of the safe. Whoa!
Oh my god. Nice. Thank you. Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
I'm going to be selfish and pick two songs because I couldn't pick between the two. So you can think of a second one if you like while I'm explaining these. So the first song I'm going to pick is a classic. This is another one that's close to me and my buddy Luke. I'm going to pick Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads, because I think it encapsulates Dougie's narrative pretty well, especially the lines about this is not my beautiful house and this is not my beautiful wife and how did I get here? So there's that. I'm also, maybe a controversial pick, but I'm also going to play Moon, the new song off Donda by Kanye West, because I think it's one of the best songs on Donda and it's just an awesome vibe, and there's a whole lot of stuff on the moon. So last time we flew to the moon, this time we are going to go to the moon. Another song that you want to listen to, Vinny? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yes, to counteract your selfish nature, I will be selfless and recommend a song from a friend who recommended it to me because it is inspired by Evangelion. Shout out to Richard. I know you listened to the first episode, and I know you recommended the song Grand Unification Part 1 by Fight Star because they are a heavily influenced Neon Genesis in the making of that song, and the band is a huge fan of the show/series.
Grand Unification Part 1 by... Could have sworn you said Fart Star there, but by Fight Star. Well, you know what they say, the first rule about Fight Star is you don't talk about Fight Star, and the second rule of Fight Star is you don't talk about Fight Star. Cool. On that stupid note, we're going to leave it there. Thank you again, Vinny, and we will see you all next time. Actually, no, we won't. You will hear us talk next time. It's a pet peeve of mine when podcasters say, we'll see you next time, because we don't see shit.
We see
each other, and we see episodes of Twin Peaks and Evangelion. So we will talk to you next time. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Spring is like on Jupiter and Mars.
I wanna see what different seasons look like on different planets. I'm way up in the stratosphere. I got a big advantage 'cause I got more